Hello, and welcome to this Gray Duck edition of the
Thank you.
Purple Journal podcast. Like Eminem, I'm drawing a line in the sand, and if you're not on the side of Duck, Gray Duck, then we don't want you to listen to the show.
We are seconds into this show, and that's two very good references.
Yes, I actually read things this week.
Off to a hot start.
How you guys
way
doing?
over the top. Way over the top. I'm good.
That's Joe Oberly. He writes for us. He writes for the Sports Post. And as I found out this week, he used to write for TV Guide. It's back in the day.
Yes, I did.
Ooh, you're so qualified. Makes me nervous.
They had a regional office in town. Actually, it was in the Mary Tyler Moore building downtown Minneapolis.
No way.
Yes, that isn't even the best part about it. I met my wife there. We both started there the same day of work. So I bought my boss introduced me to my bride. How about that?
Look at that. I partied at the Mary Tyler Moore house in high school. One of the kids that went to Minneapolis south of me lived there. And they had 3 kitchens. And literally there was a party of 20 people, and we could not find where they were because they were on the 3rd floor balcony.
It's for sale.
Yeah, it seems to be for sale every few years. I see it in the paper. So yeah. Anyway.
So are my memories. They're for sale too.
Luke Braun is also here. He writes for us. He's on our podcast, and he's also on his own new and awesome podcast called the Pocket Protectors Podcast. That's available on the. It'll be on our site eventually, and then it's on. Help me out here.
Climbing the Pocket.
Climbing the Pocket.
So it's on Climbing the Pocket originally, and if you subscribe to the Climbing the Pocket podcast, which you should, because it's good content outside of our show, you would also get our show.
When does it? When do you guys record it, or when does it get posted?
It usually gets posted on Wednesday mornings.
Okay.
I think this last week's is going to come out on Thursday morning because it was a Monday night game, which shifted their schedule around.
Ooh, so we're gonna have 2 podcasts on the site. So
well, yeah, I'm going to be tweeting a lot.
Listen to this one, then listen to that one, or vice versa.
Yeah, we're not your dad.
Joe's slowly becoming my dad, I hope. I'm gonna move in.
Okay. I'll talk about that with my bride and see how that goes over.
So, we had a game this week. We had a Monday night game against the Bears at Soldier Field, where things always go wonky, and they probably went about as wonky as I've ever seen. I don't know if I have, in my 33 years of life, have ever seen a situation quite like that, not just on the Vikings, but in general. Maybe I'm being hyperbolic, but to see Bradford out there looking like he should have not obviously played, that's not a game-breaking take or anything, but it just seemed like at some point when he was the most defining point, I guess, for me was when the pocket sort of collapsed, but no one was touching him outside of the butt of maybe one of the offensive linemen, and he just curled up and fell over, and it was like, man, he is messed up.
That was so sad, that play. He could have escaped that if
totally.
he had room to escape it and time to see it and run away. And he just didn't even try to. He just rolled over.
Yeah, it was almost like it's kind of scary, to be honest. And so that opens up all these questions about re-injuring his injury. I know Zimmer said he aggravated it after the game. I'm surprised that not many people have really been not that I want to take the coaching staff to task or the training staff for bringing him back, but I'm just surprised that with as misanthropic as Vikings media is slowly getting, that people haven't said, why the hell was he out there in the first place? And then it creates a situation where you think they rushed him back because of Keenum's play, and then he gets replaced by Keenum before halftime. It's just a mess. It's a typical Vikings situation. So, what were your guys' thoughts on bringing Bradford back?
Well, I thought they wanted to do it all week. I thought I said last week it was my pretty good feeling that he was going to play. That's the way they were moving. And you hear Zimmer talk about it this week. He said that Bradford, they were planning on it all week. They, of course, weren't saying it because they like that advantage of making the other team prepare for two quarterbacks. And Bradford wanted to come back. And, I think that's all in a case like this you can do. I mean, I talking before, I thought it was a pain management thing, and I still think that is a big part of it because he was acting so gingerly. He was not, going forward onto his, plant foot and finishing his throws. He was overthrowing him, he was underthrowing him, and then making poor decisions, to try to protect himself from getting hit. He would have all the earmarks of somebody who was in pain and not ready to play. And it's strange that that didn't show up earlier, but maybe he didn't take enough snaps, because I know they were giving Case Keenum some first team snaps that last week as well. Not all of them. I mean, I think they were moving with Bradford in mind, but I think Zimmer's always said if the guy's ready to go and they're wanting to go, they're going to play, and so you take your best players and take them out there, and clearly this is a thing where either he wasn't ready to play or else he was and he re-aggravated. It's still kind of I'm not sure we'll ever know if anybody's going to say one way or the other, but it was obvious very, very soon to me anyway that he had to get out of there.
Yeah, it's hard to say that he re-aggravated it because it didn't seem like he was just playing well
ever.
Like, from the first snap, you could tell there was something wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless he maybe re-aggravated it, like, at the end of, Friday's practice or something like that. They had to be working on bad information, because I really don't think, while it's definitely fair to criticize the coaching staff, and I'll say on record that I think the decision to play Sam Bradford right now might go down as one of, if not the worst decision of Mike Zimmer's tenure here.
Yeah.
It clearly was a disaster and is going to lead to him being out for much longer.
Thank you.
The
way,
but
not
I
to
don't know if
interrupt
that's
you.
Zimmer's. So yeah, sorry. What?
I was just gonna say that I feel like, people are like, well, he might be back for the Packers game, and my feeling is that if it took him 3 weeks to get back to the point where he was, which isn't far enough to obviously play, and then he hurt it again, he's not going to be back for a while.
He was nowhere in sight at Winter Park today. They trotted out Case Keenum. He's clearly going to
start
this week, and God only knows when we're going to see Sam back. But go ahead, Luke. Finish what you.
Yeah, and I think part of that was he practiced all week, and he might have, irritated it more there, and maybe if he spent this last week resting and then got in for the Packer game, then instead of practicing all week last week, he rested all week last week, it would have been different. But that's all, it's kind of hard to know.
It's not an exact science when
right.
Something like this. They've taken the X-ray. There's no structural damage to it. Now they're calling it wear and tear from 2 ACLs, which is understandable. He's probably missing some cartilage in there, and he did suffer an injury apparently in the Saints game, and it's not ready for him to be back on it, and maybe. I don't know. Yeah, there's some guesswork here. I'm not going to completely, pummel the coaching staff for this. I mean, there may be worse things they've done. Like the thing that caused the mutiny last year was pretty bizarre. But anyway, I'm not going to go down that road. I'm just saying I think there was I don't know. I think it's a tough call, one way or the other. And if you got the quarterback telling you he wants to play and he's doing everything he can, at some point you have to finally listen to him as the final say as whether he can go or not, and then you give it a try. And if he can't go, you get him out of there. I agree with Joe that and Luke that he should have been out of there far sooner than he was. We were saying that online, Joe, back and forth.
Right. Everybody in the world was saying. I do think that. While I think this is a huge blemish on the staff as a whole, it's really hard to blame Zimmer personally because he had to be working off bad information, right?
Yeah,
like
from the trainers.
You can't seriously think that he would have, said, oh, well, Bradford's not quite ready, but he's almost ready. All right, get in there and man up. Like, I don't think that's, like, it's really unlikely to me that that's what happened. So I think somewhere there's bad information, and I think the culprit of that bad information it made an absolutely detrimental mistake that could end up, swinging this season in a completely different direction, depending on how Case performs down the line, which he is a wild roller coaster, and he's had these like horrible meltdown games before, and now we have a higher likelihood of hitting one of those. And then we also don't know what we're going to be able to get out of Teddy, so this could have completely swung the season in a different direction based on that bad information. If that bad information came from Sam Bradford, that's just kind of heartbreaking, but it's also like, dude, don't put the team under the bus because you wanted to not lose your job. Like, I hate the tough guy mentality because the tough guy mentality leads to objectively poor decisions.
Do you think he was afraid of? Do you think that was part of his thought process, though? Like,
it has to be in the back of his mind, right? With all these stories coming out with Teddy, Teddy's going to be back, and now they're going to activate Teddy, and Case Keenum playing well for, he didn't play that well in the Lions game, so I don't know if that was particularly at the forefront in, leading up to this game where he did play well, but
I guess he's the number 9 QB on PFF's ratings. He's above like Dak Prescott and stuff, but that's because the Tampa game skewed things a little bit, obviously.
Yeah, that's consistent.
It's part of it, though.
That's consistent with a lot of advanced metrics. He's had 2 not so great games and 2 pretty good games, and I think there are some guys like who don't have that. And depending on the stat, Matt Stafford's game gets skewed by a bunch of stats, and that's a whole different conversation. But
he came in there and completed 6 straight passes. He completely showed that he should have been in there.
Yeah,
he balled out.
I think that just real quickly that's part of the mentality of the NFL players is it's that cowboy mentality or tough guy. I'm going to get out there no matter what. And you got the entire organization pushing you in that direction. I think that's with all sports, get yourself in the room, get yourself fixed, and get yourself back out there. And, there's a history of players, so we've heard that they shoot themselves up with some pain meds and get back out in the field, and sometimes it's to the detriment, but the owners are paying them a salary to not, sit on the bench. And I think that's part of, the mentality. And when you've sat out 2 seasons with knee surgeries and now you're just having some pain, at some point you want to say, God dang it, I got to get back out there. I think Sam's to blame for part of it, but I don't blame him for feeling that way.
I said we did a live chat, and we'll be doing live chats the rest of the season for the most part. And during the live chat, I think I made a reference to Varsity Blues when Paul Walker gets his knee shot up and then he goes out there and just basically destroys his entire career.
North Dallas 40.
Hey.
If you've ever seen that movie, same thing. Same thing. They talked to one rookie running back shooting up and going out there, and he destroyed his knee as a result.
So AJ Mansour wrote an article basically saying, is this the last time we're going to see Bradford in a Vikings jersey, which I think people... there's a lot of people that just read headlines and they respond on our Facebook or Twitter, and there was a decent amount of people saying yes, but also people saying like, "Oh, this is clickbait" and blah blah blah. This is a horrible article, and I don't necessarily think it's that far-fetched considering the fact that granted Teddy, and maybe we should get into this now, but from what I understand, he's just because he's practicing doesn't obviously mean he's going to play in a game anytime soon, and it doesn't even necessarily mean that he's. From what Ben Gosling said, that his contract is going to start ticking away again. I think that he can... I don't know how it works. If I recall correctly, he said that you can still be on the PUP in practice, and it won't matter until he's on the 53-man roster, I think was the conclusion. So what do you guys... do you guys feel like there's a chance that we might not see Bradford play again?
No.
For the Vikings, not forever.
I don't think so. I think, at some point this will either settle down or they'll go in there and do a quick cleanup and he'll be out a few more weeks. But I think we'll see him if the season is still in play, certainly before the end of the season. He's got everything to do get back out there for himself, and they need him. They're paying him how many millions of dollars to play. So I still think he will be out there. I think the Teddy thing certainly plays into it, and maybe even have played into the decision, the rumors we hear. But I'm going to stick with what I said at the beginning of the season. I don't think we see Teddy this year. If Bradford's done, well then things might change up a little bit. You got to have another decent quarterback on your team. But I saw that immediately when I first saw it, I thought, oh gosh, I thought no way. And then I've seen that report, or people talking about that other places too. So it's a good question to ask by AJ. It's worthwhile anyway, because it's not out of fear as a Vikings fan, but it's realistic. I mean, a knee that's already suffered that much, damage and repair, it's something you have to think about and talk about, I think.
I mean, let me throw a scenario out there with you. If you come into a world where Teddy's healthy and Bradford is not, and you don't know when Bradford will be healthy, but you do have Teddy healthy, and the reports we've seen for the last few weeks, if you put any stock into that, they seem thrilled with him. They seem like they're ready to activate him, and they're going to get him back, get him up to game speed and roll with him. If you get to that point with Teddy before Bradford is healthy, how do you not put Bradford on IR?
Yeah.
Right.
And then once he's on IR, do you really re-sign him? No way.
Luke, who have we heard that from? Who have we heard that from?
Lockenfora comes to mind immediately, and I think Pelissero and.
Yeah, but who are they quoting from the Vikings in that? They're not. They're saying report. Are they naming sources? Because until you hear that from the someone going on the record, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. That maybe it's his agent that's saying that. That's saying.
I definitely understand the being skeptical of sources, and that's why nothing is going to be there. But I think when you get the national media guys on it, and like Schefter on it, then it becomes a little bit more than somebody tweeted that I know a guy.
And I think the biggest fear, obviously, with Teddy is he can look great rehabbing, which I think has been the case, that he's been moving around well and throwing the ball well, obviously. But it's the first hit that he takes. I think everyone obviously is going to hold their collective breath and see how that knee holds up. Or that leg,
that's the whole thing.
I guess.
Can't.
Right, and if his mobility is back and stuff, and that's all going to be stuff that you have to find out in practice. And if he's not as mobile as you wish he was, then you hold him out a bunch longer, and then Sam comes back, and it's a different situation.
Hey, they've got to be able to protect themselves. They've got to make football moves. They've got to be able to do everything that the position requires. And looking at the way Case Keenum moves around in the pocket sometimes, and he's already done things that Bradford can't do, and we're not sure if Teddy can do yet. So. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna wait. Luke, are you saying that you think they will do something with Teddy, or what do you think?
I mean, considering that we've seen it from like the national insiders as well as the kind of biggest Vikings insiders, I tend to I don't really feel a need to like be too skeptical of that. I think he's activated. I don't know when he plays.
When they say down at Winter Park he's going to be reevaluated on Monday.
Yeah,
I'm holding off till then because that's their out.
That's fair.
I mean, they can say anything they want on Monday and say, well, we sure wanted to get him back, but
And he's going to another doctor to get cleared, right, on Monday.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know who's evaluating. I didn't know if it was the Vikings.
That's what I read. They said it was an exam with another doctor, and that he's the one that determines whether or not he comes off the PUP or not. But my assumption was that since he's already been cleared by a doctor to get to this point, that it should probably I would be surprised if he wasn't cleared by that doctor on Monday. But you never know. And speaking of doctors, and Joe, you touched on this before we get into some other stuff with Sam. They said that it's he had an MRI and there was no new damage. And that it's just wear and tear, and people are equating.
It's very weird because they told us last time they couldn't see. So can they see now?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, they said because last time they said that based on his injury history, that an MRI doesn't really tell you anything, right?
Yeah, it's very weird.
So at least I guess they're saying that there wasn't additional damage to his ACL. But I don't know how much an MRI can see cartilage damage. You think it would, but when it comes to wear and tear, Joe, and you're an expert on this because your knee is 90% robot parts at this point. Is that basically arthritis? Is what they're saying?
Yeah, you get bone on bone, and it causes arthritis, and you can get bone spurs, which when I had my ACL done, I had walked without it for 3 years, and the doctor told me it's the biggest bone spur she's ever seen in her life. But so they can build up, and that causes it not to operate the way it should be. And if you're a football player who's pounding on it, day in and day out for your career, and you do have bone on bone, you're going to have both of those things going on. And so
shouldn't we worry about that then? Isn't that like a chronic problem? Obviously, arthritis is something. I was told I had arthritis in my left knee because it was making this crunching sound when I bent it or walked upstairs, and it still does. I mean, it didn't go away.
Well, until you have the pain of it, if you've ever had pain from arthritis, and you're like, I had shooting up and down my entire leg, and I had no idea where it came from. And someone told me, you got arthritis in your knee. And it's like, it was affecting my whole leg. And I go, my God, what the heck is this? But,
my dad had to get his hip replaced because he was bone on bone, actually on both, because he has caveman bones, and the ball is too big for the socket. So his whole life he's just been wearing that down. And yeah, his pain was so bad that he had to walk backwards before his surgery when it flared up. So
that can be painful.
It's no joke. I mean, I'm worried about that.
I don't know why they wouldn't. You would think he has something going on there. We've never heard what his cartilage situation is, just the 2 ACL replacements, but you have to assume there was some. Although they said about Dalvin Cook, who just had his ACL replaced, he had no further damage, which is a great thing to hear after his surgery this week. So, and now that's what they're talking about is Adrian Peterson's problem. To jump even further, his the thing that people are watching online is his repaired right knee doesn't allow him to cut to the left. He's getting far less yards to the left than he is going to the right, and his right was where he had his ACL done, but his right, so anyway, going nuts here. But
that's way in the weeds. Wow.
I'm sorry. I mean, I know it was funny.
No, not going to it. That take is unbelievable. That is
somebody
that's a
was
gourmet take.
Somebody was tracking him and said of his 70 or 90 some yards he's got, when he cuts right, he does so much better. And when he cuts left, it's
just this year?
Yeah, this year in New Orleans, it was like 1.2 yards per carry when he cuts to the left, and 5 or 6 when he cuts to the right. And his left knee was the one that got the ACL repair, but I believe his right knee is the cartilage repair. So, once that goes, that's how you start losing your burst. But anyway,
it's Arizona's problem now.
Yes, it is.
Luke, anything you want to add to that besides?
I mean, if it's arthritis, that's horrible because that's degenerative and that's not something that just heals.
There you go.
At this point, it seems like whether he re-aggravated it or he just wasn't ready, it was incredibly unwise to put him in the game. We should be lucky that we won, although there's a lot more to talk about with that game, which we should move on to.
That's it.
But, it was unwise to put him in, and if it did re-aggravate him and cost him for another month, that might have cost us the Packers game. That might have cost us a London game. It might have cost us a game, a game against a team like the Browns or the Ravens that we should have otherwise beat, but then Case Keenum has a meltdown game and then we lose it. That's going to end up costing wins or losses. It could be the difference at the end of the year when we're,
it could be the
9-7 and missing out on tiebreakers. We're going to be looking back at, what if we had,
That Lions game
what
is
if
going
they
to come back
re-aggravated it? You're saying if since they put him in and re-aggravated it and didn't wait another week so he could play in the Packers game, is that what you're saying?
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Or in the Packers game and beyond, Yeah. If you want to say, either he played in the Bears game or he played in the Packers game, but either way he wouldn't have lasted more than the one game, then it's kind of moot. But if it's either he plays in the Bears game or he doesn't play in the Bears game and you get him for, you get him 4 games sooner than you're going to get him now, then that's a completely, that changes the color of the entire season.
I'm glad they got Keenum back in there, and I feel more confident now, them having done that he can do something against the Packers. So I didn't want Bradford to start the Packers game cold, not having played a game, yet, but
it's a good point too.
I don't know.
Packers have a bad secondary, and Case likes to throw YOLO balls, so it could get weird.
Speaking of Keenum, he had a great game, obviously, coming in against the Bears. He was on fire. The team wasn't obviously moving the ball. It was a baseball score at halftime. People were making jokes because the audience obviously was pretty big because of the Star Wars trailer at halftime.
I was watching on an airplane, and the guy next to me was watching the playoff baseball game between the Indians and Yankees, and at halftime, and that game was in like the fourth inning, the Yankees had 7 points, which was more than the Bears and Vikings, the football teams combined.
It's old school football, black and blue division.
Sure, yeah, old school. Yeah. Not just bad.
Yeah, /bad. So yeah, we obviously beat the Bears, which was big. I saw, and I was surprised by this because I tend to be the person that I wanted to say this, but I thought people would kind of tell me that it was stupid. But I think I remember seeing somewhere, Joe, that you said that essentially this was a must-win game for the Vikings, and I agree with that. Going 0-2 and to start the division play would be horrible.
I thought that was. Yeah. I thought it really was. It was important, especially with the Packers coming in next week after that dramatic comeback win, and that the Packers are only going to get better as they get healthier. And in the meantime, this guy number 12 carries them like that, and it's phenomenal. Now they have a running game to go to boot with it. But I'm getting ahead. Going back to the Bears, the Vikings, over and above that, the Bears were handing them that game in the first half. Oh my God. How many times did they just do terrible things, and the Vikings would trot Bradford back out there, and it was unbelievable. I said, oh my God, if you cannot beat this team, you are done. Pack it in. And so thankfully they did. They made the right decisions to get that done. But my goodness, what a brutal first half that was.
Yeah, and you mentioned McKinnon, and we'll talk about him a little bit. But before that, I just want to mention that game to me might have been the personification of what it's like to be a Vikings fan, because you have Bradford out there, and we talked about that obviously with what happened with him. But the Bears, most of their points were on like either fluke or just lucky plays. The defense was playing so great, and then they do the fake punt, score a touchdown, then they have the touchdown on what was a horrible throw that Sendejo almost intercepted. It was like, how unlucky can this team get? It was just crazy. So, you got to feel good that the defense played well enough to basically hold them to, then there was the safety, it was 2 points. So the defense played well enough to really hold them to,
There were really no, earned defensive points, because the touchdown, which was a tipped ball that also came on a drive with 3 or 4 defensive penalties on it, that wasn't offensively earned.
Yeah.
You want to talk about handing them the game, though. That drive was just a disaster of penalty after penalty after penalty.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And then the punt fake, which was amazing, and I'm not even that mad. I'd be a lot madder if we lost the game, but that was awesome.
I have to say, seconds before he did it, I said, this is going to be a fake. I thought to myself, what have the Bears got to lose at this point? It would have been like their 5th punt in a row or something. I don't know what it was, but I mean, they could do nothing. I go, they're 1-3, right? What have they got to lose? And I thought to myself, a fake. I wish I had committed it to
the chat.
Yes,
because I said on the chat they're gonna get a safety when we were on the 5-yard line before the run play or the screen play that backed us up even further. But yeah, I definitely called that safety and Diggs' injury, so I just need to stop predicting things. But
that's a their defense. Well, their defense was good. the Bears, but
their defense can be good, but they were not at full. They were like out of linebackers, and there were some other guys that were playing banged up. Their defense will be better in the future,
offense
though.
That was not with Bradford was just not doing anything, so I can't give him too much credit. But the Vikings defense was incredible. I mean,
I loved Case Keenum's pocket presence though when he was under pressure.
Yeah, I thought he did well.
He was under pressure in this game.
I think what you're supposed to do when there's pressure is just fold up and fall down.
Jesus.
So yeah, we touched on the defense and how they played, but let's talk about McKinnon, who had 95 yards and a TD.
Yep.
And seems to be
playing with a chip on his shoulder. I think he was butthurt by all the comments from how bad of a game he had the previous week, and he was running with as much
gusto,
fire, and even power and intensity as I've seen him. I mean, he got some great, the 58-yard run. There was a huge hole for him, and he made a couple nice cuts and broke it open. But some of those other runs he was, running into people and looked like a mini me Adrian Peterson of years ago. Yeah, he was tough. It was nice to see.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of McKinnon, obviously, these last couple of years, and that was definitely something I noticed, too. It was like he's dropping his shoulder into people, and that's not something he's necessarily known for, at least in that as much as he was doing it on Monday night.
Nor is it sustainable for him either. He's not going to get away with that all year and not get injured, that's for sure.
So the question is, I was down by 12 points, and I had Diggs and Latavius Murray, and I figured Murray would be the feature back, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Game plans change, but are you guys thinking we're going to be going with McKinnon and then just Murray on short?
No, I think you still split it.
Okay.
In terms of success rate, they were a lot more even than they looked, and Murray still played all right.
He did.
McKinnon probably got, in my opinion, the best run blocking we've seen all year. I shudder to think of what kind of damage Dalvin Cook could have done with the blocking that they got, but Elflein had a great game. Berger had a very weird game with some ups and downs, and the run blocking on the outside was really good.
He got beat a couple times too. Berger.
Oh yeah.
Well, he had one highlight that the broadcast pointed out, but he had some other kind of weird up. He had some ups and he had some downs.
He had a low light that they picked out too.
Yeah. So, I think McKinnon benefited from some very good run blocking that he won't always get, and even still, neither of them had very good success rates. It was like 30% or something like that. And McKinnon's going to have probably some skewed averages because he busted off a big long touchdown.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird because, busted off and it's a great play, but because it happened where it happened and not 30 yards forward, which would have been the same result, right? A touchdown. It's kind of hard to credit him with that, this unbelievable average when it really all came on one play. So I think we can slow our roll on McKinnon a little bit.
There you go.
I think we're still going to get split carries. Not that he played poorly, he played well. But there were some other mitigating circumstances that might not continue on into other games, and I don't.
Well, I agree with that. You could say that about a lot of running backs. You could say that about the one the Vikings are going to face next week. You could say that about Adrian Peterson for most of his career.
And I will.
Yeah.
During the first half in the live chat, I think I said, because McKinnon's second half obviously skewed things, like you said, Luke. I said, this is showing how good Dalvin Cook was because, like we predicted last week or talked about, he obviously was making bad run blocking look better than it was by just his pure ability. And in the first half, it seemed like the run blocking wasn't getting enough holes, and not a lot was happening there either. So
he'd get pummeled every time he took the ball up the middle. Seemed like.
Yeah. So we're like you said, you got to keep harkening back to Cook, and that'll get better as the season goes on, or worse. But it was good to see at least that there's something there.
The game got going, and I think you can attribute. I want to make sure that the offensive line is properly credited as well. But I don't care if it's because one guy played well or the other guy. The game got going reasonably after in the second half, and we can be okay with that.
And
it always helps when you have a balanced running or a balanced offense too, to get that thing going. When you Bradford, oh my goodness, there was no passing game to speak of in that first half, and that's going to clamp things down on your running game. When they're both clicking, look out. I guess maybe that's an obvious statement, but I'm sure numbers will back it up.
Numbers. So obviously Diggs had a groin injury during the game, and he was out for a while, and then came back, I think, for the final drive. Or maybe the drive before Harrison Smith's interception. But, Joe, have you heard anything out of Winter Park in regards to that? I've seen that he's not practicing alongside Bradford. Yeah.
All I can tell you about him was when we were in the locker room today, I was speaking with one of the PR people, and out of the back room, Diggs comes out, and he spies all the media, and he handed the PR guy something, can you take this to my locker? And he ducked back in. So he clearly didn't want to talk to anybody or anything about his injury or anything else. And so, no, there's really nothing there. And as usual, Zimmer was not going to talk about it either. So,
sat out practice today, Wednesday.
Yeah. Can I just take a moment to say that, Joe, your life is really cool? Like, we don't really ever point out the fact that you just casually humble bragged and said, yeah, I was standing there and Diggs came out. Like,
I don't mean to do the humble
No, you're
brag.
not. It's just I'm contrasting it to most of my stories involving my dad, and yours involves Stefon Diggs handing someone a piece of paper just this week. That would make my year. But, yeah, so it's kind of a day-to-day thing. Obviously, he's known for missing 2-3 games a year, and that's probably going to be what his legacy is. I mean, he's still young.
I don't think that's his legacy. That's just life.
Joe, that was his goal. His goal was to play them all this year. He that when they asked him at the beginning, what are your goals for the year? And he told everybody, I want to stay healthy. The whole key.
If it keeps happening, that has to be part of his legacy. I mean, not every wide receiver misses 2 to 3 games consistently every single year. And the sample size isn't very big, but it just seems to be kind of his deal.
I think what he does when
he's
he's on the field can overshadow
what scares
me.
me.
I think what he does on the field can overshadow a missed game here or there. I don't want him to get the Sharif Floyd treatment.
Oh,
that would be really
no
tragic
way.
for a guy that contributes a ton.
No, and I'm not saying that's going to be his only legacy. I should have said it better. Part of his legacy. He's talented, but he also got hurt on a regular basis.
Well, the thing is, I mean, you look at the guy. I mean, he brings to mind for me, in some ways, Percy Harvin, because they're small guys. I mean,
yeah.
He's going to get hurt, and I've always thought that from day one about Diggs. I said somebody's going to snap him in half at some point coming across the middle or something, or they're going to hit him
in college.
Yes, and Percy Harvin was built like a rock, and he was so small. He still got the heck beat out of him, knocked him out of the game because of his hips. I mean, guys like that, they can play the game, but they're going to get hurt, and it's just something that we have to live with. And hopefully, I mean, a hamstring is good. Hamstring you can come back from. It might linger for a while, and
wasn't it his groin?
It's groin.
Oh, that's right, groin. Sorry.
They're lingering, but yeah, they're the kind of thing you can play through. And he was winning earlier in the game. He was winning on routes that Bradford was sailing because he couldn't step into his throws.
Right. And he did come back. Diggs did come back in the game, not for very long, but so I don't think it's major. Hopefully, it's something he can get back out there. But
and I'm not ripping him. He's my favorite player on the team. It just is.
Now that Mobo's gone, yeah, I know.
He's never gone. So we talked about the defense too, and they had a great day. It was great to see Trey Waynes make that tackle at the end of the game, especially because Gruden said that Trey Waynes needs to tackle better, and that's his biggest problem is his tackling. And I was like, what is he talking about, man? That's like he's won the good thing.
I know. I felt the same way.
But I was I'm not gonna lie, I was getting aggravated by his play earlier in the game. He made some bad plays. Per usual, and my patience has run out, and I've been probably the most patient person alive because I have a vested interest in his career. But
yeah, he is currently the best run support corner in the league for whatever that is worth.
So hello, John Gruden. Come on.
Do your prep work, coming from a guy who missed a game this season and hosts a podcast about the team.
Did I read somewhere that Xavier Rhodes did not get thrown at or
yeah.
the whole?
First time in his career.
That's so insane.
First time in his
unbelievable.
Career.
That had to be a game plan thing.
I
wonder if they went into that game going, don't throw out 29.
I was just going to say, do you think they just told the rookie to stay away from him?
I was just going to say that's what makes that rookie smart. He's gonna have a nice career.
I think this might be my article for next week. It is time to bench Trey Waynes. It's just time to put Mackenzie Alexander on the outside and get someone else in the slot because he's incapable. He's completely unconfident in his abilities.
He had a play where he's
made a lot of mental mistakes where he doesn't know where the other players on the field are. He had one play. It was one of the sideline catches. I think it was earlier where he dropped into his zone coverage. He had help inside, and then he turned his hips in and took a step directly inside, giving up an easy outside corner play for a ball that wasn't very well placed. If he plays that ball better and understands that Sendejo was his help inside and keeps outside leverage, he has a pick there, and instead it's this big long completion. This happens every game consistently. He's one of the most targeted cornerbacks in the league, and he's given up one of the worst ratings when targeted in the league. He's a huge liability.
Yeah.
It's time to take the gloves off and bench the kid.
I don't know if this was the same play, but he was about 10 yards off his guy, and he was so far back that I think he bumped into Smith or Sendejo, who were both standing directly next to him, and he fell down, and they picked up the first down, but they would have anyway because he was so far back. And that's when I just said, and to bring up my dad reference for the week, we watch all the games together, which is why I always talk about him. And not, he's a huge Big Ten supporter, and he makes a lot of excuses for Big Ten players, I think. He's going to hear that at work and probably disown me, but even, at that point, it was like, yeah, we got to do something here. This is not working out. I mean, when the national announcers blatantly say this defense is great except for Trey Waynes, which is basically what they said at the beginning of the game, or first quarter.
Devil's advocate here because, sorry, Joe, are you done?
With the podcast, yes.
Okay. Excuse me. Devil's advocate here, right? Because I was last week at the who'd they play the week before? The Lions.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was looking at the way he was playing off, and I couldn't believe it. It just boggled my mind. I said, you cannot guard anybody playing that far back. Anyway, Luke mentioned the confidence thing. My only concern, why I agree with everything that you guys laid out and how, he's become a liability, but if it is his confidence, he has no confidence in himself anymore. If you do bench him, he might just be down the road then. He's gone. He's a bust. Get rid of him because
it'll be the end of his career.
I don't think his confidence
get on with somebody else, and somebody else will figure out how to make it work for him, and maybe not put him out there on the island until they figure he's ready or something. But how many times do we let somebody go and they're going to start, because of it's just not working out here. You've done it with Blair Walsh, blah blah blah. I don't know if he's doing better or not, but I just worry about from a devil's advocate standpoint if I'm thinking that Zimmer is trying to build that confidence up by putting him in there because he got a lot. Yeah,
well, being a trash fire on the field isn't going to build your confidence much either. And I think it's more about understanding. He doesn't understand the decision-making processes of the rest of the team. He's overwhelmed and lost out there.
And that's amazing.
And most of his problems are decision-making related. His stiff hips don't help, but often the problems he's having are either choosing to play off when he shouldn't be, or literally running the wrong way and getting himself out of position. I think the kid's got to either learn the offense quickly or, get him off the field because he's a liability. I don't care about his confidence or if his feelings get hurt.
And I guess I'll play devil's advocate too, just a quick aside, the first point. But, he comes from a Michigan State defense that was a unit. That was part of what people said was skewed about the 2 touchdowns he gave up in college was that, he played on a great defense, so you think that he'd be the best person to be a cog in your machine if your machine's running efficiently, but it doesn't seem to be working. But my question is, and we can just answer this real quick and move on to something else, but to me, when you talk about like last year with the mutiny of the players on that one play against the Packers, right? You'd think that if Trey Waynes is playing that far back every play on his own accord, wouldn't Zimmer be on the sideline screaming at him to get closer?
That's exactly right. I was just going to bring that point up, Joe.
So,
I'm saying,
are they telling him to do it? Is my question.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what Luke cares about his confidence or not. What is Zimmer doing? What is there? Why? If he can, Zimmer can certainly see what the hell's going on there if we can. So why has he still got him out there? either McKenzie's not ready and is worse, going to be worse than for his liabilities, worse than Trey Wayne's, or he's trying to somehow make it work with Wayne's because he knows he has skills but just hasn't figured it out yet because he is the cornerback whisperer. So I'm thinking there's some disconnect there. Why, if he's this bad and he's not on the bench, there's got to be, you got to think, what's the coach doing? What is he thinking?
Yeah, it's a well-known fact that in the scheme, cornerbacks, no matter how badly they're playing, cornerbacks always have the agency to choose whether or not, like, how far off they're going to play. And that's just, like, a vital part of the scheme. So if you take that away, then that's just something that, like, Mike Zimmer can't handle on a play-to-play basis. Or you can't have, like, the D-backs coach suddenly be making those calls on a play-to-play basis. So, like, the corner, whoever does play it, needs to be able to do that well. That's not like the coach should take that agency away. That's not an option.
Okay. And in playing near him or by him is Anthony Barr, who's gotten some heat for his down year last year, which was, either, and Luke, you said this in your article, either based on, coasting or injury or whatever, and that's not really the point. But it seems, and you wrote about this, so you can explain this better, that from a Pro Football Focus standpoint, I think he, from your article, was at like a 90. I don't know if that's a percent or not. I forget.
It's out of 100.
Okay.
Where 50 is even, but it's not like school grades. 50 is average.
Okay. And so he had a 90 in his breakout year in 2015, and he's rocking like almost 87 now. So it seems like
he had a 39 in 2016. 2016 was just like a different man. But I think if you look at like the run stop stats and coverage stats and stuff, which I could go over in the article, there's a lot of stats where he went from bottom 10 to top 10 in the league. It's just he's a totally different man out there, and he's totally back to his 2015 form.
That's exciting. We're gonna need him because I think we covered everything in the Bears game. I talked about Case Keenum being the number 9 quarterback in Pro Football Focus, and so. Yay for Case Keenum. He played great, and he did what you want a backup to do, and everything. So it's looking like he's going to play against the Packers on Sunday, which is going to be a huge game. They're coming off that effing win that just, it's like, God, of course.
Did you ever not think that was going to happen?
No.
I came into the game late, and I think it was 21-6. So I was kind of thinking that, my initial reaction was, the game's over. They're not going to let it happen again.
It looked good at that point. That was too darn early.
Yep. And so, it is what it is. Obviously the game plan is going to revolve around stopping Bradford. Rodgers. But Luke, what are your initial thoughts on the Packers game on Sunday?
The first thing I go to is that secondary, which is just decimated, and it's been exploited by pretty much every team they've played. I think Case Keenum's accuracy is going to be tested here, but this is the game where you just let him loose. Just go YOLO all the way. If he throws 4 picks, he throws 4 picks. But I think just go deep. If you have Diggs, go deep to Diggs. Go deep to Thielen. See if you can't get Floyd or Treadwell going. Just let it rip. And I don't know how good the Packers' run defense is, but I think the secondary is where you have to go attack this team.
And that's a good point that I probably should have added to the agenda, but it was encouraging to see the catch by Michael Floyd too.
The one catch, although Treadwell still outsnapped him.
Yeah, I don't know how many. That's
like 42-32 or something. Treadwell played more. Yeah, told you they like Treadwell better.
I was listening to the About the Labor podcast, which is part of Vikings territory, and you should definitely check out, especially because they have a software where they can do live shows and have people, quote-unquote, call in, and they answer fan questions live, and they also can do video replay. So we're looking at doing that for this show. Also, since we are in the same family, but we're not going to use webcams, at least for me, because nobody wants that. I'll just have a picture of a walrus getting washed. But yeah. A point being,
Yearly Wallace, does that make Luke the Eggman?
Goo Goo Gachoo.
I'm so worried.
I'm just a big fan of Michael Floyd. What's the point? I get at some point 5 minutes ago. So if they can't play,
they're gonna start giving him more. They're not gonna just go hog wild first his game back. He'll get more snaps than Treadwell eventually. He's got more experience, and
that was a better play than anything Treadwell's done this season.
He's a bigger body and knows how to box out his defenders and knows how to break a tackle or break a coverage and get open. It's eventually going to happen, I think.
Yeah, and Joe, what are your thoughts on the Packers game?
Packers suck.
Yeah, supported.
I'm sorry. We're on the podcast. I'm sorry. I don't know. It's. I was as disappointed as you were, Joe, which is hard to be after seeing them come back and win that. Like we said, we knew it's going to happen. It just does. And I mean, it scares me how good they're going to be when they do get healthy because that guy does so much on his own, and now they've got a running game behind it, and that's a concern. First of all, you got, as Everson Griffin told me today, there's another humble brag, that Rodgers is like another running back. You got to treat him that way because he's going to bust out. And even Zimmer was saying he just knows the defense and where they're going to be, so he knows where the lanes are. He knows so easily, intuitively how to find where to scramble and go, even if he doesn't see it right in front of his face. I mean, he's just got that sense, and he does so many things well. So, I mean, adding all of a sudden this difficult to tackle young scat back and another Aaron Jones is another thing for the Vikings defense to have to worry about. I mean, the Vikings they're the best in the league in third downs right now, getting off the field, but this will be the real test for that. If they can, they've got to get to Rodgers somehow, because the only way to slow him down. If you smack him around, even if you take a penalty here or there, you've got to let him know that you're coming, because then he gets a little rattled. But
do you think they put like Kendricks on or a spy on him at all to keep him contained?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's more of the end's got to keep him in the pocket. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
I do think that the Vikings like to go man against the Packers, just because the Packers have a history of running a lot of isolation routes. So, man coverage is kind of the thing to do against that. And they've also, last year they ran a lot of man coverage. And if you have man coverage, it is a little easier to put a spy out, just because, you don't have a bunch of zones on the field. Like if there's only 5 guys you have to defend, then you have 6 men left over. You rush 4 of them, you have a spy, you have the other guy do something else. So,
did we ever see? I mean, we saw at the end of the last game between Packers and Dallas that Jordy Nelson was not in a lot on that last drive. They even showed him on the sidelines. And I was wondering if he had gotten hurt. I did not check that out this week. And
he had that quad injury a couple weeks ago.
Let me do a little Google.
I don't know if that's what he's still dealing with or not, but
it was really strange. I mean, they were making their final drive to go down there, and Nelson on the sidelines. Oh my goodness, that's unheard of, unless there's something wrong. So I don't know what was going on. They never said on the broadcast, and I guess I just never followed up. But you're digging it up, Luke.
Huh? Yeah, sorry about that. I left my phone. I am looking at it. Jordy was a full participant, but he does have a back injury.
There it is.
Okay.
And Ty Montgomery was a full participant.
Those aren't fun.
So anyway, I think Jones is going to be a tough element for him, and the Vikings going to have to put some points up. They're going to have to stay with this team, and I don't know, we aren't going to predictions yet. I
think we are actually.
Okay. Well, mine's already wrote my preview, and it's online. So
you go first because you won last week. We were tied, amazingly, going into last week, and then in the first half I was celebrating a little bit because I think we talked about this on the live chat.
Yes, you did.
5, that it was looking good, and of course,
famous last words.
Still very close. Only a 6-point differential.
Ooh, That's huge. And you're gonna go first anyway, but yeah,
it was
I'm not
looking
gonna
real
lie.
good for you
I
at
know
3
what
to
your
2.
score is. Yeah, it
Joe,
was.
3-2. I said, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to get pummeled here." But
'Cause I said 13-10 Vikings, and I think you said 24-13.
right.
Yep.
Okay, so I already know what your score is for this week, because like
Yeah.
I said, I actually did prep for once. But you want to go through kind of your thoughts on that, and then I'll.
Well, you know,
Right.
I'm excited that they're back home. I'm fully confident that Case Keenum is going to get all the first team snaps this week. They're going to play tougher at home. The fans are going to be up for this one. Other than the fact that the quarterback position and the running back, the Vikings are relatively healthy. I think they can score against this team. And the defense, the Vikings defense is, you know, I think they're like they have. I saw a stat this week that they are the top team since 2015 for holding their opponents under 20 points, and that they just did it again last week, and so that was their 23rd game doing so. So I think the Packers will go above that, but I think they'll get to Rodgers enough. They'll slow down the run because they've done that well this season, and they'll get to Rodgers and keep it manageable, and they'll eke out a win 24-23.
Oof.
Where's the
Ooh,
groan from
close
Luke?
one.
Pardon me?
Close one.
Yeah, I was just waiting for the groan because yet again I'm picking the.
I thought the first thing I thought when I read it was, hey, another win. If you guys didn't listen last week, me and Joe both predicted that the Vikings are going to win every week. So
Still waiting for one of you to predict a loss just one time.
well, that's where I come in because that's what I'm going to do.
So far I'm 3-2. What's the problem?
Joe's got the same record as the team.
That's right.
And I have the same record as the Las Vegas shooter.
Jesus Christ, Joe.
Too soon. I don't. This is why.
My God.
That's why I'm alone. My prediction is $1. That's a Price is Right joke because.
What?
You know when someone goes first and the Price is Right and the person goes last, they say $1 because they screw everyone over. But am I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Well, somebody out there will get that reference.
Good Lord.
That's all I
This
need.
is a disaster.
That's the end of the show. No, I don't think we're gonna win. I don't think, as much as like I said, am a pessimistic optimist. I just don't see a Case Keenum and Dalvin Cookless Vikings team beating the Packers, even if they are banged up. And even if it is at home, as much as I think that'll tighten things up, and obviously the fact this is a division game will help as well, and we're familiar with each other, and so on and so forth. But I've also said since the beginning of the year that I don't think the Packers are as good as the national media are saying that they are, with giving them top 3 initial power rankings and saying they're going to be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl. I don't buy it. So, I don't think it's going to be... Well, that's not true. I have a feeling that it could be ugly and that people will stop caring by halftime. So, my prediction is the Packers are going to win 27-10.
27-10.
Over the Vikings. And
We have our first loss prediction.
It pains me to say it because obviously I don't want that to happen. But and before we get into Luke's outside prediction, besides quitting the show after the last 5 minutes, is I want to let people know too that we have partnered with Tickets.expert, which is the biggest competitor to StubHub, and it's like a very legitimate site. So don't worry, even though they're working with us, it doesn't mean that they aren't a legit site. We're selling tickets on purplePTSD.com now. So by the time this is up, there'll be a page on the site that is kind of iframe of the Tickets.expert, so you can actually buy the tickets directly through the site. You don't have to go somewhere else. And we're offering a 10% discount for Sunday's game, which I actually think I'm going to up to 15%.
That's huge.
In the morning. Yeah, I'm super excited because
that's a really good deal.
It means that basically, because Tickets.expert, the tickets are discounted anyway. so it's hard to get a discount, but I basically just said, like, we need to do a big thing for the Packers game and to launch this on the site. So 15% off, I think, will be the deal. The coupon code is purplePTSD, like the URL, so it's not capitalized than it is. So PTSD is capitalized and purple isn't.
If you're a Packers fan, is it a 20% surcharge?
That's a good point, man, because I went to the last Packers game at TCF Stadium, and I had to leave early because that was a blowout also, and the people there were so obnoxious because we were outnumbered by Packers fans. And after that, I went on Reddit and said, we have to find a system to block these people from buying tickets locally. Like, people with season tickets need to stop giving them to their Wisconsin friends. Because it was embarrassing to hear "Go Pack Go," before the game louder than what we could come up with, and to have to be literally surrounded by these people to the point where it was the decision was either I'm going to go to jail or I'm going to leave, because the guy behind us kept leaning over and saying "Go Pack Go" over and over and over again, and it basically broke any chance that I'd ever have to go to Lambeau with my dad and watch a game there, because it was horrible. But anyway, yeah, Luke. What's your
last week
prediction?
Last week I whiffed twice. I thought Tariq Cohen would have a big receiving game. He was nowhere to be found, and I had a Vikings loss, which we narrowly avoided. I have a loss again this week.
Come to the dark side, Luke. Come to the dark side.
I just can't do it. We have the backup quarterback, and it's the Packers, and it's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And he gets to throw against Trey Waynes, who is just been
You don't like Trey Waynes?
a total liability. And my bold prediction, you're really not going to like. I think we're due for a Case Keenum meltdown.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, because you've whiffed in the last two, Luke. So keep it coming.
There you go. Yeah, the reverse jinx is real.
Right.
But here's the deal, because I think the game plan can involve a lot of YOLO balls, right? A lot of high risk, high reward, deep passes, 50-50 balls, get some jump balls in there. So I think, Case Keenum can play not all that poorly and still get a lot of turnovers. So I think 3 or more Case Keenum turnovers is going to be the...
He only has one pick, right?
We have none as a team so far.
Yes. Yeah. God dang.
This is a disaster waiting to happen. Open your eyes.
Yeah,
Why on this defense, though? I mean, Aaron Rodgers doesn't play defense for the Packers, Luke. Come on.
I think we're going to come into this podcast next week and say, holy crap, how did he throw that many picks to this defense?
I have a gut feeling, and I've been weirdly right about a few injuries and things like that, which is why Latavius Murray was initially on my fantasy team, because when I drafted him figuring Cook would get injured in the first quarter of the season. But, seeing Keenum play that well, and thinking about the variance issues that Luke talked about a few weeks ago, I feel like that was maybe his up, and we're just waiting for his down, I mean, if he plays that way in this game, then why is he a backup, basically,
Right.
It'll happen eventually. We'll be due eventually, and I think
drag you sad sacks kicking and screaming to the playoffs this year. My goodness.
We got our backup quarterback against a division rival.
Here's my thing, and this is, again, since I, based on my Las Vegas joke, clearly have a very limited social circle. I was talking to my dad because he was trying to get me to cheer up, saying, we won, and, Bradford will be back, and eventually, and get us into the playoffs at the end of the year, because the NFC isn't that great. And I said, but what's the point? I don't want to be the wild card and then lose in the first round. That doesn't satisfy me. At this point, I want to do something and make a run. And I was one of the few people, present company excluded, but outside of our site, that actually thought this team before the season on paper was going to be dangerous. I was really excited about Michael Floyd, obviously. I was excited about Cook, and I thought Bradford was going to, even with, we talked about this, if he has a mediocre line, look what he can do, because that's all we wanted last year, and he was, amazing last year, despite the line. And so, I'm not happy with, and it's something I'm going to struggle with, but saying, even if we get in with Case Keenum at 9-7, it's Case Keenum is never going to win the Super Bowl, so who cares? But then that's the question is then why watch football at all? But at this point, it's just...
There's actually... You should listen to the most recent Pocket Protectors because we talk about Case Keenum and high variance quarterback. Actually, I think we talked about it in another episode too. Case Keenum and high variance quarterbacks and how essentially if you have a guy like Bradford who will be consistent but always kind of have a limited ceiling to a guy like Case Keenum who can maybe play, it's arguable how high Case Keenum's ceiling can get, but if he can, get hot, you can maybe make a Joe Flacco type run, but with a guy who's just consistently mediocre like an Alex Smith or someone like that it's, more difficult. But you should listen to that conversation because it gets a lot more in-depth than I just did.
The Vikings season isn't over yet, Joe, until the Vikings lose to the Packers, and it hasn't happened yet, so get your chin up, bucko. And as
not
far
over
as
till you're mathematically eliminated.
Backup quarterback is concerned, he's playing pretty well for a backup quarterback. He's not – who's the guy we had last year, Sean?
Hill.
Sean Hill. Oh.
It's not Sean Hill, so – it's just like our offensive line is the Vikings' offensive line is better, so is their backup quarterback. So here we go.
Just to correct you, it's chins, not keep my chins up.
I'll just keep one of them up then.
I'm trying. But anyway, that's pretty much the show. It's.
We really like to end with a whimper and not a bang.
Times are dark. I'm just, it's hard to turn
around. We did
win
a game. We should be happier about it.
We
stole a win off a sloppy game.
Yeah, but did we,
We stole a win on a sloppy game. You come into a season, you're going to have a certain amount of sloppy games, and to get a win on one of them
that's not my concern.
Is fortunate.
How many times have they lost down in Soldier Field? My goodness. Come on.
My biggest thing is
2 out of the last 3 are wins.
Yeah, but the Bradford thing just kills me because it looks like that was the end of him for a really long time. Yeah. I was so psyched to see him back.
He'll be back. He'll be back. Don't worry about it.
What you're saying, Luke?
Great piece on Viking territory about Bradford and just the body language and.
Yeah, at one point.
If it is truly that he re-aggravated it and now it's bad enough where he can't play anymore. Just a really great piece. Go read it.
I wanted to, and we're up against the clock, but I wanted to bring that up too earlier when we were talking about Bradford because it was such a strange. He had such a strange, not so much even body language, but presence. It's like he was looking off into the distance, on the sideline. He was like.
Carlson thinks he's high on painkillers.
Oh my! See, I didn't want to reference my dad again, but he said that he's on something. Is what my dad said because he has no. Experience with anything in that regard, so he doesn't really know how to phrase it. But yeah, he basically said he was high on painkillers too. So as somebody who's dabbled in painkillers myself, I co-sign that because it was just completely strange. So next week we'll talk about Bradford going into treatment. It's a minimum of 28 days. But no, I wanted to
sponsored by Johnny Manziel.
Yeah. I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to remind everyone to go to Purple PTSD, click on the tickets tab. The instructions will be there, and you can just copy and paste the coupon code, but it is Purple PTSD, just as it's stylized. So Purple is not capitalized, PTSD is all caps. And it should be 15% off the game, and that's huge. You can save, $30. No, 20. I don't know. I'm not the stats guy. But follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Purple PTSD. Follow Vikings Territory. On Facebook is Vikings Territory. On Twitter is Viking Territory. And check out the Pocket Protectors podcast. It should be up at the same time as this one is fresh and new. And then from this point going forward, I think we're going to actually post it on our social media and website as well. So it'll be hosted there. You should
also go to thesportspostcom and read my story on why the Packers should be the next villain in the league. Because Brady's going to retire at some point, so we need a new villain to hate, and the Packers are my nomination for it. So go. That one's on there.
A lot.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is like. I know.
I'm sick of having him losing the divisional round every year.
That is nice. Yeah, I'll take that. But we just got to not have him dancing with that trophy on U.S. Bank Stadium floor, February 4th. That'd be a killer.
That'd be the end of me. And this is the end of the show. So check out the sports post too, like Joe said, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening, and Skol. Tuh.